Here with Mauro Ranallo here at the HCF. Pretty good card today. Tell us what your thoughts are on the card.
Being as unbiased as I can be, because I've been associated with hardcore championship fighting for many years, but when you take a look at the aggregation of talent that has been put together for this card, I would have to say it probably is one of the best cards ever held on Canadian soil. I know the UFC is coming in April, but when you take a look at the main event, you have a former Pride Fighting Championship superstar in Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, taking on a guy in Todd Gowenberg who has been riding a lot of momentum lately. He's won 4 in a row, including going 3-0 in Bodog fight. And he's, I think, a tailor-made opponent for a guy like Nogueira. Nogueira has an extensive boxing background, bronze medalist of the Pan American Games, South American boxing champion. Gowenberg loves to use his fists. So I expect a very engaging stand-up war in the main event, and one that should leave the fans begging for more.
HCF is coming up with some pretty good cards. Are you surprised by the level of talent they're bringing in here?
Well, I'm not surprised because, again, knowing Keith Crawford the way I do, he's a guy who likes to think of the bigger picture. And you know, they're not making money right now. And I know there's been people out there, well, why in Calgary do they keep spending all this money bringing in all this high-priced talent when the support really isn't there? They're trying to build something. And I think when you look at even the UFC for many, many years was almost going bankrupt and lost a boatload of money. We see what's happened with the IFL and other companies. It's all about giving the fans the product that they want to see and hopefully generating that interest that will keep them coming back. And what more they ask for? I think the partnership they have with the Score television network has also helped them bring in the bigger news because the Score has asked them to do that, and the Score has helped out with production costs. And as you can see, the production values have picked up greatly. And you take a look at tonight's card. I mean, there's so many recognizable names. You have a mouth-watering middleweight matchup involving David Crolowazo, at one time the #1 contender to the UFC middleweight championship, against Jason Doomsday, who's been a stalwart here in the Alberta mixed martial arts scene, and really a victory against Lovato, or even an impressive showing, is going to draw him a lot of attention from the bigger companies. And we keep talking about the bigger shows, but when you take a look around tonight, I don't know, really this rivals anything the UFC or any other companies put together so far this year.
You've commentated a million shows. Is there any show that sticks out to you? I know you're working for the HCF right now. You work for a million companies. Is there any particular show or particular fight that stands out to you as something that really, really invigorated you while you were commentating it?
Bushido, the tournament, September, I believe, of 2006, I want to say. It may have been 2005. See, I've done so many. But the night that Takanori Gomi was involved in not one but 2 Fight of the Year candidates against Luis Azeredo. And, of course, who did he fight in the first fight? Man, my memory is definitely not helping me. Do you remember who he fought in the first fight? The two fights. Luis Azeredo, hold on. Darn it, it's at the tip of my thumb. It was Azeredo and Sakurai. Yeah. That's who it was, Azeredo and Sakurai. Thank you very much, my friend. And of course, and there were so many good matchups there with Sakurai, Pulver. You had Hansen and Edwards. That night for me was probably the best card I've ever announced. But then more recently, the Strikeforce Elite XC show last June in San Jose with Phil Baroni and Frank Shamrock. Kong Lee on the card. That, for atmosphere and quality of competition, ranks right up there.
You've obviously been around the world. Is there any particular place where you see that the fans are, better or more educated than others?
Bar none, Saitama Super Arena in Japan. The greatest crowd. They're not as loud or as boisterous as a North American audience, but they understand the nuances of mixed martial arts, the ground game. They will cheer a transition where here in North America, unfortunately, still you hear boos when it goes to the ground. So I would have to say the Japanese crowd is still the most educated crowd on earth, but we're getting better here, especially I think Canada also has very knowledgeable audience, and so far, I would say, yeah, Japan and then Canada and then the United States, unfortunately, still has some education to do there.
Have you commentated any fights outside of those countries?
I have commentated fights now, let's see, in Japan, in Canada, in the United States. I would say just those 3 countries. Although, I remember once on vacation in Italy, I commentated a fight between my mom and dad. So I think Italy also counts there for one as well.
We got some pretty enticing matchups coming up in the UFC. I want to ask you about Anderson Silva versus Dan Henderson. I'm going to ask you, who's going to take it and why?
Wow, that one is a fight that I'm definitely looking forward to because obviously Anderson Silva's run roughshod throughout his career so far in the UFC, destroying all of his competition. Dan Henderson, though, that's a guy that's almost impossible to beat. He lost via submission to Antonio Rogerio Nogueira's on the card tonight, but Dan Henderson is a guy that you almost have to kill to beat, and I think really stylistically he's going to present a very tough fight for Anderson Silva because of his wrestling pedigree and his natural strength. I know Anderson Silva is a devastating striker, loves to work in the clinch, and it's going to be interesting to see if he can impose his will on Dan Henderson. I don't know if Henderson can beat Anderson Silva outright, but I wouldn't be surprised if Henderson doesn't win, maybe by a gritty, unanimous decision.
First fight for the UFC in Canada, it's going to be Matt Serra taking on GSP. I'm going to put you on the hot seat again. Who's going to take that one?
Well, let's first preface it by saying that I've never like you say, I've called hundreds of fights. I've watched mixed martial arts since the very beginning. I've never seen a more dominant performance by an individual than George St. Pierre against Matt Hughes in their rubber match to win back the interim title, the title he didn't want, by the way, which is happy. I don't think lightning is going to strike twice for Matt Serra. I hope he cashed in the lottery check, and I feel sorry for Matt Serra because I'm a huge fan of his. He wasn't really able to enjoy his tenure as champion as he herniated the disc in the back, but knowing where GSP right now is, both physically, mentally, and possessing those otherworldly skills that he does, I think George St. Pierre is going to run through Matt Serra like my good friend Godzilla ran through Tokyo.
Any parting thoughts for the fans?
My parting thoughts for the fans, I just want to say that it only took you 4 years to realize that I'm really not that bad a guy. Thanks for the support on the Underground and Insure Dog, baby. And remember, Mauro Ranallo is your biggest fan.
I'm kind of embarrassed with my voice. I do a lot of interviews, but it's nothing compared to yours.
Well, thank you very much. You know, they don't call me the phone sex operator voice for nothing.
On that note, thank you very much for joining us today.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Mr. Lip.